2009
yep.
and 2010, you made $750,000. You had the money to pay for law school. You didn't need a Soros affirmative action scholarship that you now criticize.
I mean, none of this is worthy, but if you think it is, let's get to the detail. That was actually the first big piece of money.
You say you're anti-affirmative action. You took a scholarship for immigrants
I'm anti-affirmative action.
So why did you take a scholarship for the children of immigrants?
Which falsehood would you like me to address? The financial one or the one about my views on affirmative action? Because I can go in whichever order you'd like.
On
the financial piece of it. Not at the time that I had applied for the scholarship that fall.
Yes, you did.
That December.
Yes, you did, Vivek. This is awkward for you because you did. I've got the tax returns in front of myself.
By the way, just on a factual point, since we heard a lot about the second speaker, about how backward we Muslims all are, on a factual point, you said that Islam was born in Saudi Arabia. Islam was born in 610 AD. Saudi Arabia was born in 1932 AD. So you were only 1,322 years off. Not bad? Not bad start there. Talking of maths, by the way, a man named Al-Khawarizmi was one of the greatest mathematicians of all time, a Muslim, worked in the golden age of Islam. He's the guy who came up with not just algebra, but algorithms. Without algorithms, you wouldn't have laptops. Without laptops, Daniel Johnson tonight wouldn't have been able to print out his speech in which he came to berate us Muslims for holding back the advance and intellectual achievements of the West, which all happened without any contribution from anyone else other than the Judeo-Christian people of Europe. In fact, Daniel David Levering, the author of the Pulitzer Prize-winning historian and author of The Golden Crucible, points out that there would be no Renaissance, there would be no Reformation in Europe without the role played by Ibn Sina and Ibn Rushd and some of the great Muslim theologians, philosophers, scientists in bringing Greek texts to Europe.
That you can say to a Palestinian model who wasn't born in 1972 that you cannot advertise a sneaker associated with the 1972 Olympics because Palestinians carried out acts of terror at those Olympics. The only thing you can say they have in common is that they're Palestinian, which is the definition of bigotry. It's the definition of racism, right? There's no debate about it. If you're saying that you are linked to those people, what are you linked on? Oh, because you're all Palestinian. Then that's the definition of collective punishment, collective blaming, bigotry, racism. And I think Adidas, whatever the hell we want to call this anti-Palestinian shoe company, has basically just kind of rolled over for not just Zionism or Israel, rolled over for a bunch of racists. Let's just be clear about that.
Of course we have social responsibilities as politicians. I absolutely agree with that.
Do you have policies on fighting racism?
Yes, we do.
What are they?
We're completely intolerant of intolerance.
No, what's the you said you have policies.
Well, that is the policy.
That's not a policy, that's just another phrase.
What's your definition of a policy?
A plan that a government can enact using the powers of the state or the exchequer, changing laws around discrimination, inequality, changing the education system, cracking down on discrimination.
All of those follow from our 3 words.
I'm not even a politician.
All of those follow from our 3 words.
Okay. Let's go to this lady here. You've just front row. I condemn the invasion of Ukraine. Do you?
I condemn everything which led to
Hold on, Victor, people are here listening to you. You're just all lives matter does, all right?
Ceasefire is the most important
I agree with
thing.
you. So far we've agreed. Ceasefire is important.
Ceasefire.
American invasion of Iraq was wrong. We agree? You said it. You said it a moment ago.
Afghanistan, Syria.
Agreed. I'm with you on all of them.
Yes.
Okay. Russian invasion of Ukraine is wrong. You condemn it.
No, I think we need to really go back into the history
to
see what exactly happened.
Victor. You can condemn every American invasion, but you will not condemn the Russian invasion. And then you say everyone should respect China's sovereignty. You don't respect Ukraine. You can't bring yourself to condemn the Russian invasion.
You need to listen very carefully as to what Russia is saying.
I'm listening so carefully to you tonight, I'm not hearing a condemnation.
No.
Okay. Isn't the real reason Donald Trump is fighting this war on immigration is that he's a racist? When the president tells 4 women of color, members of Congress, to, quote, go back to where they came from, even though 4 of them, all of them, are U.S. citizens and 3 of them were born in the U.S., is that not racist?
I know Donald Trump. I've spent a lot of time with that man.
No, that's not what I asked, Stephen.
He is not a racist.
Okay, he's not a racist. Is that comment racist?
People can interpret it as racist.
No, I'm asking you, Stephen.
I don't know.
We invited you here to answer the question.
I don't know.
Is it
I'm not
racist?
gonna answer that.
Why won't you answer it?
Because
what's the problem?
Let's move on
you have
to
such
something
strong
else.
views.
I don't think Donald Trump is racist.
I didn't ask that question.
disagree with some of the things
Telling
he
people
says.
to go back to where they came from, is it racist? It's a yes or no question.
I know facts are not your strong point. Is energy production higher today under Biden than under Trump? It's a simple yes or no question.
You're an obnoxious See, but then the issue
Facts hurt, don't you? Facts don't care about your feelings.
Are Americans wrong when they have this feeling? Well, the feelings
I'm
oftentimes are
obnoxious
generated
because I asked
from
you if energy production's higher today than under Trump.
You're
That makes me obnoxious.
just because I'm asking you why you would say that
I mean, I'm
Biden
obnoxious.
didn't thwart.
You're a racist.
He didn't
We want to play
thwart-
that game? You said Obama is not born in America. He's not one of
did?
us.
I
He's
said that?
Yeah, you said Trump is doing a great job asking for his birth certificate.
I
You said
said
he's
that?
You said he's not one of us. You said he jives and schmucks. Should we go down the record? You're going to call me obnoxious? Why don't you talk about your racism?
Yeah.
But you're always very keen to put it all on Israel.
No, because if we're talking about...
I try and be a little bit more like, hang on, when you commit a terror attack
Yeah,
to the scale of October 7th.
you both sides occupation and illegal...
No, I don't.
Yeah, you are. You just said,
I don't.
I try and be fair. You can't be fair to an occupier. By the way, when we talk about Russia and Ukraine, this is what frustrates me. And I know my friend Owen Jones sat here and said the same thing to you. When we talk about Russia, Ukraine, you don't do both sides. You blame Russia as the invader and occupier. You don't do that with Israel. That is the double standard on your part.
True. I mean, do you actually believe in your Muslim faith? Do you believe that Muhammad split the moon in two? Do you believe that Muhammad flew to heaven on a winged horse, for example? I'd pay you the compliment of assuming that you don't.
No, I do. I believe in miracles.
You believe that?
Yes.
You believe that Muhammad went to heaven on a winged horse?
Yes, I believe in God. I believe in miracles. I believe in revelation. I mean, the point here is that let's assume I'm wrong, Richard. I'm wrong.
Let's
assume I'm wrong. I'm wrong. I'm happy to concede that, Richard. I'm happy to concede it. I'm wrong. All religions are wrong. God does not exist. We're all mad. The issue is we exist.
Your view. I'm fascinated by how somebody, a respected, sophisticated journalist in the 21st century, can believe that a prophet flew to heaven on a winged horse.
Let me ask you this. Are all people who hold beliefs in God and in miracles and the supernatural, do you regard them all as intellectually inferior to you?
I'll tell you, one of the most common questions that I get from young Muslims is about interfaith relationships. I'm a Muslim, I've fallen in love with a non-Muslim, is there any hope for us? And they usually say something along the lines of that my parents and their imam insist that Islam stops interfaith marriage. Is that true? Rather than me giving them my personal interpretation, what I've come to realize is that they're actually not asking about themselves, they're asking about their parents. They need an argument that will convince their parents that love is borderless.
What my worry is, if you buy this argument that the mullahs are all bad, everyone thinks for themselves.
All bad. Come on.
A lot of them are bad.
Hyping that.
A lot of them are bad.
Don't be a typical journalist.
A lot of them are bad.
Don't do that.
A lot of them are bad. I read 2 of your books. They didn't come out very well.
Don't polarize.
A lot of them are bad. We think for ourselves. We don't allow them to monopolize power, end the power game, etc. My worry is, if I'm in Al-Qaeda, that's very appealing. I don't need to worry about classical law, scholarship. I just make up my own religion. I give a fatwa saying kill the Jews.
And they do. And they do. That's exactly what they are doing.
And aren't you validating them? Because you're saying from a liberal perspective, we make it up as we go along. And they, from an extremist perspective, say, let's make it up as we go along. You're almost empowering the very people you claim to be fighting with.
You know, that's a very...
Because he's given a very long film here in which he talks about community leaders.
There's a very interesting point he made about community leaders.
Not really. He said that they don't speak on behalf of Muslims. I agree with him. No community leader I've ever met has claimed to speak on behalf of all Muslims.
You think I've got a right to tweet the cartoon and you agree with my film. What's the debate?
I agree with your film because it's a series of straw men. It's a series of straw men. For you to come along and say that you're this great dissenter and reformer speaking out against Muslims. You did in the film, and the reason Newsnight invited you on here is to give that impression. There are people with actual grassroots support in the British Muslim community who are fighting for gender rights, who are fighting against extremism, who are fighting to have debates about issues. Majid, sadly, with great respect, very intelligent guy, very articulate, doesn't speak for them. It has zero credibility in the Muslim community, is loathed by many Muslims because he goes around demonising mainstream Muslim organisations as supporters of Al-Qaeda. He goes around taking government money and parroting the government line on extremism. He goes around promoting ex-leaders of the EDL.
All right, I want to bring in...
Question for Mehdi. In view of the fact that in Australia, Muslim couples have a much higher birth rate than the rest of us, is it not possible that in a couple of generations, Australia could have a Muslim majority who vote in Sharia law? Further, if so, is it not possible that sects could develop, Sunnis and Shias, who begin bombing and shooting each other and turning currently the best country into the world like another war-torn Middle Eastern country? This is not Islamophobia, this is Sharia law phobia.
Okay.
I think there was a lot more than Sharia law in there. Let me just try and unpack your point. In fact, in a country like Iraq, you mentioned war-torn countries in the Middle East. Iraq, a country torn apart by war, partly by its horrific dictator, partly by a Western coalition that involved Australia that went in to make it more war-torn, and today is riven by sectarian splits that didn't really exist before 2003. Pre-2003, Sunnis and Shias got married in Iraq, had sushi children, mixed children, right? So let's not... And today, I'm sorry to say, a lot of the sectarian divisions in the Middle East are geopolitical push by Muslims. A lot of them are pushed by foreign wars and foreign occupations, I'm sorry to say. So you don't have to worry. Sunnis and Shias, I have many friends who are Shia, many friends who are Sunni. We're not all at each other's throats. Please don't believe everything you read about us. Come and talk to us, meet us, make Shia and Sunni friends, and then you'll see.
As the Hamas spokesman saying on camera after October the 7th, we are going to keep doing this again and again and again. That's different.
It's much worse,
because
the Israelis are literally doing it as we speak.
And they have a charter to get rid of...
It's much worse, Piers,
they have a
because
charter
the Israelis have killed
Israel.
tens of thousands of people.
Yeah, but see, but
my problem... Thousands of Palestinians.
You and I, Mehdi...
So does, hold on, Piers. Yeah. So does the Likud Party. 1977 Likud Party charter. What does it say? Between the sea and the Jordan, there will only be Israeli sovereignty. River to the sea. That's the Likud charter, Piers. I haven't heard you criticize the Likud charter. Hamas. In fact, tonight, the Colonel knows that hundreds of people went to Netanyahu's house and screamed, "You have blood on your hands," Israeli protesters. I guess they're all Hamas, right? The Israeli position now is anyone who disagrees with them is Hamas. I'm guessing that tomorrow they'll say CIA Director Bill Burns, who was involved in this hostage negotiation deal, he's Hamas too. Everyone's Hamas. And as for deception, I mean, come on. The Colonel was a spokesperson for the IDF, which has spent the last 6 months lying. Abby, your network has debunked multiple lies that the Israeli military has told. CNN's Jeremy Diamond, I urge all your viewers to go and watch your colleague Jeremy Diamond's report on 10 kids killed in the Al-Maghazi refugee camp last month. The Israelis said we had nothing to do with it. And yet Jeremy interviewed 3 munitions experts who looked at the evidence and said, yeah, Israel killed those 10 kids. So when we talk about deception, we're learning from the masters here. On the planet, or are you going to vote in favor of what are quite mild consequences for the Saudis? We're not talking about regime change. Crispin did. We didn't bring it up. We're just talking about the cutting of ties, for the ending of red carpets, for the suspension of arms sales. Don't listen to the fear-mongering of the opposition, of Crispin Blunt, who tells us that if we stop selling bombs to Saudi Arabia, there'll be a revolution inside the kingdom, which seems rather bizarre to me. For a man who's such a big supporter of Brexit, he's given us a lot of Project Fear tonight. And this isn't just about human rights. This isn't just about human rights. This is about interests as well. 19-year-old student, Shaban Ahmed, software engineering student at Al-Azhar University. Jonathan's military destroyed his university, destroyed his house, displaced him, made him homeless 5 times over the past year. On Monday, the world, we all watched him burn to death thanks to Israelis bombing the area outside the hospital that he was on an IV, on a bed, in a tent. He burned to death. His mother died. 2 other, maybe 3 other people died. I'm not sure how Jonathan still comes on these shows and defends that kind of barbarism and open war crimes. I'm not sure how Jonathan sleeps at night watching people burn to death thanks to the military that he served and is now being investigated both at the International Court of Justice and the International Criminal Court.
I think beating demonstrators is a mistake. Yes, I'm admitting it.
When you torture people, it's more than a mistake.
It's shameful.
Okay, well, on the issue of shamefulness, when I was in Ramallah, I drove past a building which I was told was the Palestinian presidential palace. Cost several $1 million. It was grossly, obscenely big. I'm wondering, why does the president of an occupied people need to live in a palace?
It's not built for him, it's for our guests.
Which guests?
And what you call the presidential palace is a guest house. We have parliamentarians from all over Earth, we have NGOs coming to visit us and so on. So where are you going to keep putting them? In the moving big at $300 a night? We can't afford it. This is why we built this guest house, and please come and visit it. And if you come, I will have you stay there.
We did.
I promise.
I did come to Ramallah, and when the Al Jazeera camera crew went to film the palace, they were threatened with arrest. We talked about in part 1.
We are settling it out.
We're worried. The rest of the world doesn't want a nuclear war because your 2 countries can't sort it out.
You worry about many more things that are happening. Your ISIS can catch hold of nuclear weapons. Worry about
ISIS?
Worry about them. Worry
Did you say
about
my ISIS?
Your ISIS in the sense, ISIS can catch hold of nuclear weapons. Worry about them. The terrorists in the Middle East, terrorists in Pakistan can catch hold of nuclear weapons. Worry about them. As far as India and Pakistan are concerned, we behave as responsible nations. We try and sort out the issues
responsible nations that have fought several wars, that have nuclear weapons in defiance of the international community, and you can't even tell me tonight what your proposal for peace is apart from talking about ISIS.
We have to talk
So yeah, the world is worried.
How else can we?
Let me ask you about what Israel is doing. I had senior spokesman for Hamas, Osama Hamdan, on this show a few weeks ago, and he actually said that basically his organization will be willing to live with a Palestinian state in the West Bank alongside Israel. You say a flat no to that, which means you're basically more uncompromising now, more extreme than Hamas is. The Israeli government has a more extreme position than Hamas. Wow.
Well, Hamas has proven what happens when we give even a centimeter of land to Arabs. They shoot missiles at us. We left Gaza. We handed it over to Abu Mazen.
You didn't leave Gaza.
Hamas took
Come on.
over.
You control the airspace. You control the territorial waters. You control the borders. You control the population register. Is that what you call leaving?
Taiwan should just surrender because there's no way for them to attack these warships that they're being called hospitals without, in your view, violating international law.
I mean, it's a crap analogy, Jamie, with respect. Nobody's claiming that Hamas built hospitals as warships. The argument is, are they using hospitals to hide in or hide under? Nobody disputes those are hospitals. Have you been to those hospitals? My friend just came back from a hospital in Gaza. He saw kids being brought in with gunshot wounds to their head. He saw people having operations without anesthetic. The WHO has pointed out that the vast majority of healthcare facilities in Gaza have been damaged or destroyed. Dozens of American and Canadian and British doctors have gone out. White people, Jamie, not just brown Muslims, have gone out there and come back and said,
we're not going to play the race game there, Mehdi.
No, I need to finish my sentence. Then you come back in. They've all gone out and said hospitals, healthcare facilities have been destroyed, have been damaged. For you to claim that Hamas built a hospital pretending it's a military base is an absurd analogy. So your China analogy is one of the worst I've ever heard.
I said,
if you don't want to be called Nazis, stop doing it.
You've been called an anti-Semite more than anyone else at this table.
Yeah.
And people will sit there and, no, by me. I never called you an anti-Semite. Okay. I mean, I'm not sitting here saying
I'm a supporter of the Palestinians, so I'm used to it.
Yeah, I hope your beeper doesn't go off. The thing is that
you just say I should die.
Here's what I will say.
Forget the racism.
That's right.
It's I should die.
I didn't say that. You
said, what does beeper mean? Don't give me your fake ignorance.
I did not say you should die.
Why did you say with my beeper?
What did you mean?
What did you mean by the beeper? What did you mean by the beeper? No, you didn't. You said, I hope your beeper doesn't go off.
Brian, stop talking.
At least have the guts to support your racist comment.
You don't think the Israeli Air Force bombing apartment buildings, refugee camps, mosques, cemeteries, hospitals, schools, universities, libraries?
Firstly, it hasn't bombed, as far as I know, hospitals. They have attacked...
Literally no expert agrees with you on that.
That's not true. What you're saying is not true. The only hospital which I remember being bombed was by a rocket fired by the Islamic Jihad by mistake. That's as far as I remember. Israel has raided hospitals. Let me talk. Israel has raided hospitals, but with infantry.
Let me ask you this question.
Hamas people in there, Hamas headquarters, inside hospitals, under hospitals.
Actually, we've never seen the headquarters that Benjamin Netanyahu put a beautiful Bond movie video out for. We've never actually seen that from underneath Al-Shifa. It's been several months. We're still waiting for that. So on the 31st of October, according to Human Rights Watch, Israeli forces unlawfully attacked a 6-story residential building, killing 106 civilians, including 54 children, without warning. 4 strikes, completely demolished. Human Rights Watch found no evidence of a military target in the vicinity, making the strike unlawful, indiscriminate under the laws of war. Israeli authorities have provided no justification for the attack.
The Hamas always hides their own casualties.
Even the Israelis didn't say that they were hiding in the apartment building.
I don't.
You said you don't want to be a spokesman for the government. You're offering a better defense of the government than the government is.
I don't know.
Everyone abides by it. And what's tragic, Don, is in the last 6 months, the United States and the UK have allowed Israel to tear up those rules. And going forward, every other country will say now, well, Israel did it, we can do it. Shut your mouths.
But one thing that we haven't discussed and that I don't hear a lot in the conversations is October 7th.
And I think Jewish Americans believe that, hey, you guys have forgotten that we were attacked on October 7th. There are still hostages, and a lot of people died.
Literally, no one's forgotten that. We talk about hostages all the time. We talk about October 7th all the time. The point about October 7th is it doesn't justify a genocide. It doesn't justify war crimes. It doesn't justify collective punishment. It doesn't justify a famine, right? There's a man-made famine in Gaza. Every humanitarian aid agency on planet Earth, Don, says that this famine is preventable, that it's man-made, that there's food nearby, that the Israelis have either blocked aid from coming in, or when they allow the aid to come in, a la World Central Kitchen, they bomb the aid. None of that is justified by October the 7th. I interviewed the son of a husband and wife who were killed by Hamas on October the 7th, and he said, please don't use my parents, the death of my parents, to justify the killing of innocents in Gaza, and I agree with him. Cemeteries, mosques, churches. Put aside the morality of that for a moment. Just the political suicide. Who in this country likes Benjamin Netanyahu? Why are you going to bat for Benjamin Netanyahu? Why are you risking American democracy for Benjamin Netanyahu? Why are you risking your re-election for Benjamin Netanyahu? Why? Why? I feel like banging my head on a wall every day. Israel wants to do everything except what every smart person is telling them to do. Even members of their own security establishment are telling them to do. End the occupation. And then see what happens. You say nobody's waking up in the morning saying we want to kill Israel for no reason.
You say, Mehdi, all roads lead to the occupation.
Yes.
Okay. Israel would say all roads lead to Iran.
Who cares what Israel says? They've lied for the last year. They've lied for 30
Who cares what they say?
Yeah. Do you care what Russia says?
No.
This is what I'm saying. You're inconsistent. The occupier and the invader doesn't. I don't care.
It's not a barbaric.
So if you're a liberal democracy, first of all, they're not a liberal democracy, and second of all,
well, they are.
No, they're not. They're an ethnocracy. But even if they were a liberal democracy, you don't get to invade other people's land. That's not an excuse. Piers, you sound like you're justifying an illegal military occupation. Should Palestinians in the West Bank have the same rights today as their Jewish neighbors?
I think within the, I think that subject to security issues, which are daunting in that area, I think the answer is aspirational, yes. I hope we get to that point. Remember, the Palestinians live under the control of the Palestinian Authority. So again, if you want to talk about certain rights and civil rights...
No, they're an occupied people, Ambassador. The Palestinian foreign minister can't leave the West Bank without Israeli permission. Do you know of any foreign minister in any other country in the world who can't leave his own country without the permission of a foreign country?
And yet you have Benjamin Netanyahu pops up in the middle with little video ads where he tells people how much he loves them before he bombs the shit out of them. And he's done this with Gaza. He's done it with Lebanon. He's now doing it with Iran. And the telltale giveaway is that the subtitles, the language is always in English, which is not what these people speak. But let's have a play.
Hamas is doing its utmost to maximize them by using Palestinian civilians as human shields.
For too long, Hezbollah has been using you as human shields.
The IDF urges Palestinian civilians to leave war zones.
Don't let Hezbollah endanger Lebanon. Please, get out of harm's way now.
Get out of harm's way, Matt, says the guy who is sending the harm.
Yeah, if you are here tonight, ladies and gents, if you're here tonight to defend what Israel's done, knowing full well what Israel has done, if you're defending the human suffering in Gaza, the amputation of little kids, if you're doing that in full knowledge, then you're not just here to defend the indefensible or justify the unjustifiable. I'm sorry, you're a sociopath. And I will say to you, throughout history, when people say it can't get worse in Gaza, I don't understand that because we've seen it get worse over the last year. We've seen it get worse over the last few weeks.
Yeah, but we've seen it get worse under Biden-Harris, right? So, I mean, their point is that you can't be double genocided, right? So,
actually, you can, for example. The West Bank, for example, is somewhere that Donald Trump has his eye on. Miriam Adelson, Imran, who I'm sure you know, is the biggest donor to the Republicans right now, the widow of Sheldon Adelson, the casino magnate, hardcore anti-Palestinian, anti-Muslim, far-right Israeli-American. She's given $100 million to Trump with the specific request that the annexation of the West Bank happens on Trump's watch. They are talking about wiping out Palestinians from the West Bank, not just from Gaza. So when people say what's worse than a genocide in Gaza, I would say a genocide in the West Bank. Policy, and we know the UK Parliament wanted to speak to Elon Musk about the role that Twitter or X played in the horrible race riots over the summer. Musk, here's a point for you, Andrew. Musk said, how dare you? We're going to call you to the US Congress. And the very next day, Senator Mike Lee, a senior Republican senator from Utah, said, I'm going to call British MPs to testify in front of me if they go after Musk. He's basically got the American government, or at least the Republican part of it, dancing to his tune. His COVID record, do you want me to give you a great statistic? Well, a horrible statistic. More people have died from COVID on Joe Biden's watch than died on Donald Trump's watch. Did you know that? Bet you didn't know that. Number two, let me just say this. Donald Trump is younger than Joe Biden. I like Joe Biden, but I don't want my president to die in office. There's a very good chance, God forbid, Joe Biden could could die in office. Donald Trump is a healthy man. He eats cheeseburgers, he drinks Coke, but you can't deny he has some serious energy with all those long speeches. So he's healthier than Joe Biden. And number 3, give the man a chance. He's only running because Barack Obama made fun of him in 2011. So let him have a chance to be president on his own term.
Where can people actually go to find what is actually happening?
Well, obviously, Sunday, 8 p.m. live, MSNBC. There's a show called The Mehdi Hasan Show, which is very opinionated but very factual. No, look.
Sorry, you don't get to then come back and tell me this guy's the anti-establishment blue-collar billionaire. Then you're just in a cult, because we saw 4 years of Trump and he didn't do shit for the little guy.
But they say the economy was better.
It's a lie.
The border was not a nightmare.
That's not true. I mean, I can't deal with people's delusions. It's not true to say the economy is better.
Well, but the West Bank isn't Gaza.
Exactly.
The West Bank isn't a dream, but it's also not ruled by Hamas, and it's not Gaza.
And I'm glad you mentioned that. The West Bank is not Gaza, and yet Israel has killed a record number of people in the West Bank over the last year. It's killed a record number of children in the West Bank over the last year. Sky News, at the morning we're speaking, has a video out showing a grandmother being killed by Israelis entering a West Bank refugee camp in an ambulance, something we were told was a huge war crime when Hamas does it. So
you see that there is a terrorist on his way to kill Israelis, you should do whatever is necessary.
The ticking time bomb.
Then you will be tried, and the court will decide
but
whether you are right or wrong.
You know that many Palestinian detainees who are not ticking time bombs were tortured by Shin Bet. You know that.
It means that the legal system does not have the tools to discuss terror because it was shaped during the time when states fought each other.
You have no regrets for any interrogations, abuse, torture on your watch when you were head of Shin Bet?
No, because
you said it about many people.
Well, okay, so
you said Bashar al-Assad in 2012, 1 year into the civil war in Syria, when the death toll was much lower than Gaza. You said it was a genocide. You said the Rohingya in Burma.
Well, that's interesting.
Hold on. You said Rohingya in Burma.
Answer.
I'm finished my question. Then you answer. Okay. You said the Rohingya in 2017, far less death toll in Burma, is a genocide. So I look at Piers Morgan and I say, here's this uncensored person, very bold, outspoken, opinionated man. He says Syria's a genocide. Burma's a genocide. Ukraine's a genocide. Israel? No, it's not a genocide. And now today, actually, I'm going to withdraw the charge of genocide of Ukraine. That's how much I don't want to accuse Israel of genocide.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
It feels like you're afraid.
No.
The policies that President Trump stands for are the policies the vast majority of Republicans in the United States, which is 87%. This gentleman represents a tiny faction of the Republican Party, who are really Republicans in name only.
No one's disputing popularity. It's not a show about polls.
Well, it's a show about democracy.
Let me ask you this. Let's talk about immigration, big issue. You want to talk about policy and substance. You yourself, I believe, entered the country back in 1961 as a political refugee, as a child with your parents from Cuba. You benefited from American law, international humanitarian law, refugee protection, asylum laws. You were not denied the right to asylum. You were not separated from your parents at the border. Why do you support a man today who supports doing that to today's refugees from Latin America?
Oh, that's because...
When you have a constant media diet of lies and propaganda, which these people are kind of injecting into their veins every night, and we now know that the hosts, well, we already knew, but now we can prove that the hosts don't even believe the nonsense they're saying to their viewers. By the way, Joy, you and I are often accused of having contempt or disrespect for the conservative voters. No one has more contempt or disrespect for conservative voters than conservative media personalities, by the way. But look, how do you stop that when you have non-stop lies? I don't have the silver bullet. It's very hard when 20 to 30% of the American public has been cocooned off in a bubble where they are fed misinformation, disinformation by the likes of Ingram and Hannity. Israel's territorial expansionism attacks, not a mess, it's Israel occupying multiple Arab lands, which leads to quote-unquote resistance or quote-unquote terrorism, whichever word, I don't care what word you want to use right now, but that is the core, right? You had John Mearsheimer on the show this week, made the same point. Deal with the occupation, then you deal with the violence. And look, has Hezbollah fired into Israel at civilian? Yes, I don't agree with that. But the reality is 82% of the exchange of fire between Lebanon and Israel since October the 7th has been done by Israel. That's not what you said, though. I just want to go with what you said, Matt, with respect. More than 50% of social housing in London is now occupied by people who are not British. That is not true.
I'd need to look at the statistics.
We have the statistics. According to London government,
I also wrote...
the figure in London is 84%. According to the 2021 census data, only 14% of Londoners living in social housing did not hold a UK passport. This has been pointed out to you for the last year.
No, it hasn't.
In fact, you went back on GB News and corrected it and said 48% go to people who are headed by people who are not born in Britain, which is a different point. But you would accept the vast majority of people in social housing are British.
I'd need to look at the data.
I've got the data.
No.
It's right
But
here.
the fact that 48, I think the 48,
copied and pasted.
I think the fact that 48% of social housing in this country has gone to families that are headed by somebody who was not born in the country is a problem.
So that's a different argument, with respect.
Well,
and let's talk about that argument.
Well, let's have that.
No, let's have that argument. You were wrong on the first point.
I don't think I was wrong on the first
You're
point.
100% wrong.
Well, I'd like to look at the data.
The Mayor of London, the census data.
I don't think the Mayor of London would be a credible source on that.
Okay, the London government. The London government don't know who's in. All right, how about
a highly political figure.
All right, how about the Ministry of Housing? 90% of social homes go to UK nationals. You're making some sweeping claims, and they're wrong.
Cynical in the extreme, and I think Braverman is someone who, interestingly, people point out, well, her parents aren't refugees; they came legally. She said at Tory Party conference last year, Suella Braverman, Home Secretary, said, "My father," I'm quoting her, "was effectively kicked out of Kenya." Effectively kicked out of Kenya. So hold on. Your father was effectively kicked out of Kenya and was embraced by Britain, and you got all these opportunities, but you are not going to help others who've been kicked out of their countries. That is fundamentally what's going on here. The hypocrisy is as brazen as it is nauseating. And I, for one, I hold brown people to a higher standard. So when people say, well, we've got a diverse government, okay, then that's even worse. That if it was an all-white government, I wouldn't be as mad as I am now when I see them behaving in this way towards people on those boats who are Eritreans, who are Sudanese, who are Syrian, who are Iraqi, who are Afghan. They're not Ukrainian, by and large.
Keir Starmer, David Lammy. Do you believe the British government is complicit in war crimes in Gaza?
I think that war crimes have been committed in Gaza, and I feel that we have not done enough to stop them.
But are we complicit in it by arming them?
I think that's a judgment that would have to be made.
I know, asking for your judgment.
But I think
you're
it's
a private
really...
citizen now. You can tell me your views.
Alexis J says no need for a new inquiry because her 20 recommendations,
Yeah, I don't agree with
which
her.
you don't know what they are, haven't been implemented yet.
I know.
But that's fine. I do agree with her. David Greenwood, who was this lawyer for the victims in Rotherham. You mentioned Rotherham as a gotcha, I think. David Greenwood, who was the lawyer in Rotherham of the girls. He was that's my opinion. I have a right to opinion. David Greenwood, the lawyer in Rotherham, of the dozens of girls, he's the guy who represented the girls in Rotherham. He says, I don't think we should have another inquiry. There's too many inquiries. We need action. We need to get the recommendations done. Another inquiry, he says, would be a distraction. Now, that's not a gotcha on my end either. Maybe we should have another Ash inquiry. I don't feel that strongly about it. I'm just telling you, Piers, for your viewers who are following Elon Musk's nonsense, a man who knows nothing about this stuff, that David Greenwood, a lawyer involved in this, and Alexis J, who did an inquiry in Rotherham and then did a national inquiry, says we shouldn't have another inquiry.
Yeah, and I'm making the point that in her national inquiry, she
you and I are
mentioned...
not experts.
But the general public forgot. But brown folks, as you say, are very cognizant of that. I want to bring up Gaza in a moment, but right now, Middle East foreign policies, even before Gaza, even before October 7th, it was a factor for a lot of brown voters, right? And so, how do you think they reconcile that? Just to go back to my question, do you think it's an issue of, well, you know, I need to improve my family's life chances, therefore I'm going to move to the United States regardless of how much I hate their foreign policy? Do you think it's a kind of, I don't care about foreign policy? Is it, I can try and change things from within? We all have those discussions. I have them with myself all the time. I'm an immigrant. I literally chose to come live in the US despite my critiques of what the US does abroad. How do you think people deal with it? How do you reconcile the iTunes agreement?
I know this because we both have kids, you know, like these kids ask us tougher questions than Mehdi Hasan.
Yes.
Like people think Mehdi Hasan asks us tough
100%.
questions. They ask like true paradoxes about like the very meaning of life. But I think the thing that I think about with my kids all the time, and it applies to us, signing the iTunes user agreement to live in the empire, is you do the best you can with the resources you're given.
But when it comes to foreign conflicts, we still don't seem to have made that calculation. There was a study done a few years ago of op-eds in the New York Times and the Washington Post on the subject of Israel-Palestine from 1970 to, I think it was 2000 and something. And it was like 2% of all op-eds in the Times and 1% in the Post were written by Palestinians, which is a shocking statistic. We deny these people a voice. And then we wonder why people don't sympathize with their plight or aren't
marching in the street. Well, they are marching in the streets, but in bigger numbers. Why America is okay and kind of, blind to the fact that we are complicit in the genocide of these people, because we don't hear from these people.
Are you worried that if Trump comes to power, he's going to come after the media in the way that we are seeing in other countries, 100%. Including you and others? You think so?
Well, as for me, the Trump people have openly called me out by name and threatened me.
Yeah.
One guy who wants to be Trump's Attorney General, Mike Davis, tweeted that once I'm Attorney General, the first thing I will do is send Mehdi Hasan to Guantanamo Bay. Like, this is the stuff they say openly.
This is a tweet?
Tweet, open, public threats. Public threats. Look, he doesn't have the power to do that, but the point is, this is the language they're comfortable using, threatening journalists and immigrants with all sorts of unconstitutional.
But you think
broader than me.
Yeah.
Trump has made it very clear
he
plans to target the media. He recently called out CBS. He said, I'm going to shut you down. NBC, you're traitors, treason. I'm going to go
New York Times, wait till you see what I do for
you. He's open. And by the way, again, he did this in office too. People say, well, he was in office. In office, he threatened CNN. He incited violence against CNN. CNN got death threats from people who liked him.
Amazon.
He's been very open about his authoritarian agenda.
So does Hamas. Hamas could have ended that war.
But we don't
Hamas
support
could have
Hamas. You didn't vote for weapons to Hamas.
But Hamas could have decided to stand down and prioritize the safety of their people instead of perpetuating that war.
You and I don't send our money to Hamas.
That war for months.
We're not responsible for anything Hamas does. You and I are responsible for what Israel does.
That's correct. But let's talk about accurately.
60,000 dead is on our hands, right?
who is responsible for this
60,000 dead.
There's responsibility in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, and there's responsibility amongst Hamas leadership.
But we're responsible for only one part of that. You would agree?
Netanyahu has made it very clear that he's not going to stop the war. He doesn't want to stop the war, and that's why he's never been interested in a ceasefire. He's only interested in pauses. So, some people are spent the last 24 hours attacking me on social media because I was one of the people who said Trump will be worse on Gaza than Biden. So there's a lot of gotcha moments going on right now. So, well, look, Trump was better. He did in 24 hours what Biden couldn't do in a year. I would say let's wait and see, right? I'm old enough to know that Donald Trump is not what you think, is not what you see. And people who have celebrated Donald Trump early tend to find egg on their faces. So
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I always think you don't want everybody using your products.
That is a bold statement for a CEO to make.
But I'm not for everyone.
You don't want people who support genocide to use your product?
Absolutely not. You're not allowed.
You're not allowed.
No, I hope they don't ever use it. I don't want them to. I know it sounds horrible because you should be products for everyone, but I'm not discriminating against looks, religions, anything. It's like
it's the ideology.
It's the ideology, your philosophy. Yeah,
and you're supporting of killing.
Don't buy our products.
I mean, my friend Owen Jones, who I do a segment with, who's a British journalist here, he says the same thing, which is what we've seen people be okay with, I don't think we can ever unsee. I think like you said about some of your friends and celebrities.
Are they really okay though? Are
Sorry?
they really okay with that?
Who's okay with it?
Are people really okay with seeing what they are seeing?
Well, they have been, right? There are people in my industry, the news media, who've been totally fine with this. Some have supported it, the worst of the worst, but also the ones who are cravenly silent have just turned a blind eye. I don't think I can ever forgive those people. I don't think I'll ever be the same with those people forever.
I'm with you.
I think in 20 years' time, I will still say, I remember what you were like when you got into journalism. My mother is more worried about me, less about me not being a doctor, more about, will Trump come after you? Is people threatening you? Tomorrow I told my mom I'm becoming an accountant. She would be delighted.
Yeah, or a lawyer.
Or a lawyer. She said exactly. She goes, you know how to argue. Why can't you be a lawyer?
But a news anchor, what are you actually doing? A comedian, what are you doing? You see?
So I think you're right, 100%. But I think what's changed in recent years is that attitude is changing amongst brown folks. Yeah. I think they recognize the value of what you're doing and what I'm doing. I think when something like Gaza happens, October the 7th happens, obviously go back 20 years, 9/11. I think people belatedly in our community realize we didn't have anyone on screen. We didn't have anyone in the arts. We didn't have anyone in Hollywood. We didn't have anyone on the nightly news. And I think that is slowly. I do a lot of travel like you do. You travel for stand-up. I travel. I've done a lot of promotion for Zete, a lot of speeches to brown crowds. I do see the change now. Before, people would be like, what is this? Now they're like, how does my kid do what you do?
No, I think it changed because they see you making money.
Maybe seeing you make money, I think, Bassem.